What they didn't show in the edit, which we're really annoyed about, is Peter Jones said it was the best pitch he's ever heard in the Den.
Oh, really? They removed that?
And they didn't put it in.
It's because I think if he'd made an offer, they would have kept it in.
I know.
Yeah.
We were surprised, actually. The reaction to the negotiation has been big.
I'm Karine, and this is The Seat of the Muse, a show I started out of love for meaningful conversations and a curiosity about the stories behind what people do. Each episode is an invitation to sit down, slow down, and listen in, because sometimes a single story can shift how we view our own. This is a space for the stories we don't always hear, the ones behind the titles, the passions, the quiet turning points, and the worlds hidden in plain sight. Now let's get into today's episode.
Lydia, Amelia, welcome to the Seat of the Muse podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, I'm so happy we're doing this, and it was also spontaneous. Like the way it happened is I dropped you a LinkedIn message. Thanks for answering. And essentially, I had seen a post of you, side-by-side pictures of you when you quit Goldman Sachs and then when you were back there to pitch Ivee, which was like your full circle moment. And I knew I had to kind of reach out and dig more into that. So I'm so happy that we're doing this. And so obviously you girls are first and foremost sisters, but also now co-founders of Ivee, a platform for people and mostly women to begin with, to return to work after a career break, essentially. So I want to tap into that and start by understanding who are you girls sitting in front of me so that my listeners know. And then we can dive into the whole journey you've been having the past year.
Of course.
Sounds good.
Yeah, perfect.
You kick off.
I'll kick off. I'm Amelia, co-founder, and Lydia's older sister, older and wiser sister. And my background's a little mixed. I'm a published psychologist by trade through the University of Cambridge. And last year I was elected as a fellow there. And my research there was touched on candidate choice in recruitment, really. So, why is it that one candidate's more likely to apply to a job than another? Let's say they have the exact same CV. I then did a massive 180, went into banking. So that's when I was at Goldman here in London in foreign exchange sales and trading, which maybe we can come on to that. Half loved it, half hated it,
Yeah,
I'll say. But it just didn't scratch the entrepreneurial itch at all. I felt like a bit of a small cog in a big wheel. So then I left to join a health startup called Zuki, where I led their business development team. Great product.
I love it. It's my
So
vitamin
good.
C every morning.
It's so good. And then Lydia and I jumped full time. Yeah, quit our jobs and went full in on Ivee in July of last year, which is when we launched.
Okay, wow. And so what about you in parallel?
Yeah, I'd say, well, interestingly, I also did a stint investment banking as well,
Okay.
also on the trading floor at Macquarie. I personally just can't do early mornings, like genuinely. And it sounds like such a silly thing to say, but like that is not how my body clock works. And
Yeah.
I'm not doing my best work at 6 a.m. And so I'm never going to love a job like that, even though, the kind of brain power that you're using is great and the fast pace of it. But, I always think that to be absolutely incredible at something, you have to absolutely love it. So yeah, didn't stick with that. I then did a stint at Deloitte. So I started out in the management consulting side of things, but very quickly realized that the ventures team is where I wanted to be. Kind of similar to Amelia, there was that entrepreneurial itch. We'd started a bunch of companies when we were, companies is
Yeah, I was going to say.
is a stretch. I started businesses when we were kids, like shoveling snow off people's driveways for a few pounds. We had a car cleaning business for a time. So, it was always there.
Yeah.
There's always a drive there to do something kind of different and maybe a bit outside the norm. And so when I joined the Deloitte Ventures team, it was a corporate venture capital fund, which means that it was investing out of the Deloitte balance sheet into startups. So speaking to founders, understanding what makes a scalable business, understanding what that gut feel is when you meet a founder and just think, you are going to do amazing things. You're so passionate about the space. You're so smart. And being around that space, really just pushed me even further towards thinking, I definitely want to build something myself. We'd always had conversations around building something together. We have quite complementary, I guess, personalities, but also skill sets. Yeah. And then as we kind of came across the idea for Ivee and started working through it in more detail, we realized that, we were onto something that we were super passionate about. And it was about the right time in our careers to be able to make that jump. Although I will say probably a common theme on this episode will be don't wait till you're ready to do stuff, because we actually had this conversation literally today, which was sometimes you just have to do things and see what happens, and you've got to make your own luck. You can't look at other people living it large on LinkedIn and think they're so lucky, because there's a whole load of grind that went into creating that lucky moment.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And so how did you come about Ivee during those times? Like, how did the idea actually come? And then when did you realize, because obviously you were on different career path, how did it happen that it was the right time for you both?
Well, Lydia had the original idea, and we actually dug out the original voice note that she sent me on WhatsApp. But it stemmed from watching our mum experience the problem that we're solving firsthand, whereby she was director level in her job and then left the workforce to take a career break. And we watched how she just completely disappeared as a candidate from incumbent talent networks. You know, she hadn't been on LinkedIn in years. She wasn't going on these faceless clinical job boards like Indeed or Monster Jobs. Even the name Monster Jobs, you know, says it all. And she just completely disappeared as a candidate. She was invisible to recruitment teams. And that was how many years before we actually launched? It was a couple of years before at least, where we sat on this idea and it just built and built and built under the surface. And at that point, as Lydia said, we were being quite strategic in our career moves to put us in a position where we could jump into being a founder, because I don't think I could have gone from Goldman to being a founder, because I think that jump was a little bit too big. I say that, I'm sure I could have, and I would have made it happen. But joining a startup as an employee for 2 years was so helpful to me to learn the tech stack, learn the fundraising process, how does marketing work, how does PR work,
It's a whole world.
all of those, you know, different functions which you just don't get exposed to when you're doing one job in a large global corporate. And that was the impetus for us building. And then maybe you can touch on the reason why that was the time that we jumped.
Yeah, I think
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was one of those moments where we were chatting about it, and both of us are very kind of, can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, of course.
No bullshit people. Just because, you know, the thing that we would never do is not act on something that we wanted, and then just, again, it's that piece of don't expect stuff to come to you, you have to make it happen. And so on a whim, when we, you know, chatted through the idea a few times, sent it through a few voice notes, I applied to this kind of pre-accelerator program, which didn't take any equity in the startup, but it was really just a let us help you figure out this idea and see if it's a business that's worth creating. Didn't think we'd get in, ended up getting in. It was put on by Barclays Eagle Labs. And, you know, it's that piece again of don't wait till you're ready, just throw the application out there and you never know what might come back to you. And so we did that, and that almost forced us into, okay, let's actually think through customer acquisition. Let's think through what would make this profitable. Let's think through all of the different competitors that exist in the space and how we'll differentiate. And that, especially for first-time founders, having a little bit of insight into what does the first few months look like is really helpful. And that's where I think a lot of founders might fall down is, I've got an idea. How do you get from there to, you know, I've got 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, you know, and I'm a thought leader in the space and I have clients. It seems like such a big jump to do. And I think it's that first few months where you need to get it right. And for us, we had that slight helping hand, which was really good.
Yeah. Shout out to Barclays Eagle Labs. Great.
Great. And so how did when I did the full-on stalking on you girls on LinkedIn, I see that you've done, Techstars and then moved on with Balderton. Can we touch upon a bit your journey through that, but also even just actually the beginning, you saw the issue with your mother, but how did you see it that it's, bigger than that, it's affecting other women, and many, many others.
Yeah, we clearly just love not paying for offices. That's the common theme between all of these programs.
I wasn't trying to get this out there.
But To your point, there's one thing having an idea, but then figuring out, is it big enough? Is there crucially a pain point that you're solving? And even more importantly, is there a willingness to pay? Because a lot of problems are worth solving, but if no one's willing to pay for a solution, then unfortunately it's not a viable business. And so the first thing we did during that initial program Lydia was talking about was we did a big cold email campaign to our budget holders, which for us is global heads of talent acquisition. And we sent it to ginormous companies. I think it was any company above 25,000 employees. And it was complete cold email. But we phrased it in a way, and one of my favourite sayings is, if you want money, ask for advice. And if you want advice, ask for money. So we asked for advice. And we genuinely were looking for advice. And it was basically an email that said, hey, appreciate this. This is so out of the blue, but I would love to pick your brains. I've got this idea. I'm trying to figure out whether it's got legs. And the reply rate was something like 32% from these big swingers, from the likes of the KPMGs and the JP Morgans of the world, agreeing to get on a call with us because we hadn't asked for anything. We just wanted their advice. We saw them as a thought leader. And we made sure we were very clear on those calls to figure out what set questions were we asking, but also an advice to anyone listening is create an environment where people feel like they can be honest, because a lot of people will lie to your face and say, oh, of course I'd pay for this solution, when they actually wouldn't. And so we did all of those calls, transcribed them, and then figured out, okay, this has legs. This is the shape that the product could potentially take. And then we started building from there.
Okay. I think that's like honestly a great way to, I call email you, so
Yeah, exactly.
call message. I genuinely think like that's a really great approach. And I've had someone on the podcast before who did exactly the same thing with her business. So I genuinely believe in that.
But all of our best moments have come from cold. We got Techstars, cold application, Boulderton, cold application, Dragon's Den, cold application. All of our angel investors, cold LinkedIn messages. You don't need to be well connected. You don't need to have.
I will say on that though is, and I think the mistake that a lot of people make with cold, and the reason it's not working for them, especially now, is they'll write it with AI and they won't really edit it. And I think what we're really good at is making things sound authentic and like personable and human. And even though we use AI for a lot of our productivity day to day, we'll never write a LinkedIn post with AI.
Yeah.
Because that is the part that should be human and should come across as human. And even with, like, we've just launched an AI review feature, and yes, it is an AI CV review. We have trained that model to speak in our tone of voice, so it doesn't sound like it's AI. And so that if people listening it hasn't been working cold, firstly, how are you writing your messages? And also secondly, what medium are you using to contact them? And is it one that's really saturated? If so, do something about out the box.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you can tell from the post that you girls write that the tone of your voice is there. Like, so I totally see that. And so if we kind of take that step of, because you mentioned AI, obviously you use AI in your platform. How did you build that with your skills? I'm assuming you have complementary skill. Maybe you were more on it, Lydia? I'm not sure.
You look like a techie.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's definitely something that has been a learning journey. And I think one of my favorite parts of being a founder, I love being a founder, but one of my favorite parts is every day I get to learn something new, and you just get to be a sponge and suck up loads of information. And one of those things is building AI agents from scratch, not having had a technical background, not having done, ComSci at uni or anything, not having had a previous job in the tech space. At Deloitte Ventures, we were looking at tech companies, so understanding the product from, I guess, more of a product-y perspective rather than an engineering-y perspective. But then my biggest resource of learning has been YouTube. Honestly, the stuff on YouTube that is completely free is incredible. People will teach you a degree, basically. And just because of the time pressure of being a founder and having to build stuff, it would be a case of literally watching a 4-hour course on 2 times speed so I could do it in 2 hours, learning that new skill, and then immediately building something with that. And it's just that pace and that speed of learning stuff for the use case and then building, which is the best way of actually cementing that knowledge that you've learned really quickly. So that's been, a really fun part that I've got to do, but it has been a journey for sure.
For sure, I can imagine. What's been a less fun part in the journey, or something you would do maybe differently now?
Oh, great question.
I think I've kind of got two very different answers for like whether it's something I would do differently or a non-fun
sure.
part. The non-fun part is there's a surprising amount of admin associated with being a founder, which we really don't like to do.
I'm allergic to admin.
Yeah, so we really don't like to do.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah, like stuff like payroll
Yeah.
and HMRC docs.
Okay.
So that would be my non-fun part.
My non-fun part, it's hard. I mean, it's probably got to be fundraising,
Okay, really?
but just because it takes you out of the business. It's repetitive, and you're not building. You don't feel like you're building something that's going to make drive the business forward.
Yeah.
And you kiss a lot of frogs as well, and so a lot of the time it's like small term rejections, which every founder gets. Like that is the process of fundraising, but it doesn't feel good.
Fair enough. But I guess you need fundraising to be able to build even more, right? So
It's true, yeah, and it's definitely we've had a journey around figuring out what is the sweet spot for us to fundraise. A lot of not competitors, but a lot of solutions that exist for some of the sub categories of candidates we cater for are very much lifestyle business and have never fundraised and don't have global ambitions, whereas we firmly do. And so for us, it's making sure that we're like punching above the weight of who some people might deem our competitors, if that makes sense.
yeah.
But there's loads of different ways to fundraise and amounts to fundraise, and you can raise only from angels, you can raise debt, you can bootstrap, and there's a lot of paths. And I think founders tend to be a little bit blinded by fundraising equals success, because you see a really hot round get published and you think that equals the company is successful. But it doesn't. It's just a fundraise.
Yeah.
But I think especially on LinkedIn, it's like the highest praise you can get is announcing a round.
And so maybe if we focus on Ivee back a bit and the mission behind it and what you're trying to do, I think obviously there's one part which is building the product, and then one part which is educating people on what that product actually is, whether we're talking about the employee or the employer. So I really want to know and educate a third layer of like my listeners. What are some because I'm sure like the data is staggering in terms of if we talk about like gender pay gap or things you realize with people who actually leave the workforce and trying to come back, how it affects, them in that position.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about the gender pay gap. And of course, Ivee as a product exists for any candidate that's pivoting or returning. But it's traditionally been a very female problem, because women have typically been the ones that leave the workforce. And so that's why it explains 80% of the gender pay gap in the UK, which is crazy, because a lot of people, if you were to ask them to describe or define the gender pay gap, they would say it's men and women getting paid different amounts for doing the same work. And that's actually very, very not true, and that's illegal. And it's because women are far more likely to leave, and the process of coming back means they undergo so much occupational downgrading because it's so hard for them to find employment at the level that they were at, that they enter not only lower paying roles but lower paying fields. So our mum's example, she was director level, trained accountant, and then she came back in as a receptionist, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And that happening time and time again is the reason why the gender pay gap doesn't really come into play until we reach our 30s, because that's the point where you typically tend to see women leaving the workforce. What's interesting is a massive tailwind that's coming into the career break market, which is AI-driven layoffs and mass redundancies. That doesn't really discriminate on gender. It actually does a little bit, because women are more likely to be laid off by AI because they're more likely to work in more admin-based roles or departments like HR. But that's kind of separate. But what does this mean? Well, it means that the career break market is actually becoming much more gender neutral. And as we look out to the next 5-10 years, the landscape will shift quite dramatically. You're also seeing some great tailwinds in the form of more men taking paternity leave as well. They still get very badly affected by career breaks as well. And so it's it's not a penalty that targets women, but because women have traditionally been the ones that have been leaving, that's why it's so linked to the gender pay gap. And that's why in Sweden, the gender pay gap is so much lower. It's not because the career break penalty is lower, but it's because men and women take career breaks at more equal levels.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And I personally, for example, didn't know the actual definition of the gender pay gap. I thought it was, the former you mentioned. So I think it's super important for people to first understand that, to understand what you're trying to kind of, I guess, tap into.
If anyone is interested, they should read Claudia Goldin's Nobel Prize winning research in 2023 out of Harvard, and her lab was looking at exactly this and essentially proving that the crux of the gender pay gap in the US labour market is because of gender differences in the taking of career breaks.
Yeah. And so I guess when you launched Ivee, you got mostly women to kind of confirm the theory that, this product is needed and someone will pay for it? Or how did you go about getting your first, I guess, maybe clients?
Yeah, we definitely started out as being women focused, and that's why the pitch on Dragon's Den, which was literally filmed before we had actually really launched anything, very last minute. That's why it's so kind of female focused, and that's what they really honed in on. Since then, we have understood and heard from lots more people that are, as Amelia mentioned, being laid off due to AI, or they have career breaks for health leave, travel. We have people that are ex-athletes that are then moving into corporate, or ex-army veterans moving into corporate. So there's loads of different reasons why people would need to restart or pivot their careers. And we realize that the market is so much broader, and we can still stay true to our original mission of helping people like our mum with a much more global and bigger ambition that can actually help way more people than that smaller segment of the market that we're looking at. And then crucially, you have to be driven. Yeah, as a founder, you have to be able to pivot quickly, and you have to be able to actually hear feedback and not, well, I say that, hear selective feedback, because sometimes feedback in some ways isn't good and you should have it water off a duck's back. But then if you're hearing the same thing time and time again, you need to be able to listen and pivot. So one of the things that we found was that because companies, B2B clients of ours, which is where we make the majority of our revenue, because they were saying, listen, we love your product, we love your solution, but because our budget is shrinking for TA, talent acquisition, SaaS tools, we really only can be using a couple of tools. And so hearing that feedback, we realized that, okay, LinkedIn is the behemoth in this space. Most companies will be using that for their recruitment. But the problems that they're finding with LinkedIn is it doesn't surface candidates that have had any type of career break or a pivoting. And you just get loads of really irrelevant applicants because of the easy apply button. And so taking that feedback on board and thinking about, okay, and in this new future where there will be up to 30% of grad level roles, for example, are being wiped out and way more people are getting made redundant by AI, how can we provide the solution for that candidate base? But also the sell to companies there is, we have an entire talent pool that isn't on LinkedIn, that isn't getting picked up by those LinkedIn searches, that is falling to the bottom of your piles because they have had career breaks or they're pivoting. And the way that LinkedIn kind of works is if you have the job title currently, it will push you to the top. And so in that way, realizing that piece and, okay, well, we have to get people to pay for this product and that it's a bigger global mission, that those were the factors in why we've moved away from it being just for women. But it's so important that your ego is small enough that you can take on that feedback, and that you don't have the mindset of kind of the sunk cost fallacy, whereby you've put so much time and effort into this one thing that let's just double down on it and keep going.
Yeah. Obviously, it's been a year now, and you've had clients such as, Deliveroo, Red Bull, which is great. And how do you kind of, I guess, do you do educational sessions, or how do you pair, like, how does it work if I'm, say, someone who's made redundant, I've been out of the workforce for a few years, what's my journey like on Ivee? And then on the other side, how are they, presenting their jobs then?
If you're a candidate, one, massive feature of Ivee is that we're not just a job board. We don't just list jobs. We're an ecosystem. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, you come to Ivee and you can access reskilling and upskilling, because for many candidates who have been made redundant or they're returning, they often are coming back into doing something slightly different. And it's figuring out, what are the skills that I've got? What are the new industries being created? What are my skills a good fit for? Where should I focus my efforts? What does the current recruitment landscape look like? What makes for a good application? All of these unanswered questions we educate on in our learning hub, and we've got a huge amount of content within there. Many of that is bespoke and personalized to that individual. So if you're returning to a tech role after a 2-year career break, it will be very focused on, what has happened in that particular, or in your particular coding language in the last 2 years, for example, but then more broadly as well. That's the first thing they can access. The second thing, and really the backbone of Ivee, is our community. And we don't throw that word around lightly, because a lot of people can say they built community, but the job application process is so lonely. And these candidates aren't going on LinkedIn because they're not participating in a social media network for the employed. And so they don't, and their network has completely disappeared. And so there is a real need to build that back up. And that's been one of, the real pillars and cornerstone features of Ivee, which is networking with other people returning to the industry alongside you, learning from people that have successfully done it, joining live cohort-based boot camps and workshops and webinars, so that you really feel part of something bigger, and that you're not just throwing applications into a void, which is what most candidates today feel like they're doing. And then, of course, fundamentally access to job opportunities as well. And we're lucky to say that around 40% of the jobs on Ivee are posted exclusively with Ivee from companies that specifically want to target this talent pool, because they hate going to LinkedIn, because they can't handle the influx of applicants who are based outside of their jurisdiction. And then on the company side, it's a much simpler process, but fundamentally they want to access unique talent. They want to cast their net as wide as possible. And so we'll integrate with their internal hiring systems, so they never have to manually post roles, because recruitment teams are really busy, and to expect them to come onto multiple platforms and manually post roles, it's just not going to happen. So we can integrate fully, and that means that all of their live roles post to Ivee. They can track all of their applications, but then we also go one step further and we deliver a short list of the best candidates throughout our entire database. So what our proprietary AI algorithm will do is it will take a role, it will scan our entire database of currently around 70,000 CVs and profiles, identify the top matches for that, whether they've seen the role or not, and crucially, whether they've applied or not, because for a lot of candidates in our talent pool, what happens is they've seen the role, they're overqualified, but they haven't pressed apply because of a loss of confidence. And so we then engage them, and then we'll shortlist about 5 to 10 CVs and send it directly to the hiring team. Wow. So that will then also bypass the ATS. And then we do some fun, funky brand partnerships with some of our clients as well, who want to tap into the brand equity that we've built in the space. That's also really important to us, because we don't just want to be part of their back office hiring tech stack. We want to have a public facing brand partnership, because they want to be able to leverage our brand to speak to a massive pool of candidates that they can't currently reach as well.
Yeah, no, I think your answer was perfect. And sorry if my question was maybe too long, but I think it's all amazing and so inspiring. And I think you're tapping into something that's it's much needed, because you're not trying to solve personal failures or anything. It's really a structural problem in the job market today. And the point on confidence is so important, I think, as well, because that's one thing, even if you haven't left the workforce for ages, but you're trying to maybe change jobs, or you took a bit of a break as, a young person, you feel so demotivated and a bit you don't dare try to apply because you feel like something maybe is missing. I mean, I've been through that. It's so common. So I can only imagine how, people who actually left for a while the workforce feel.
And it's funny because there's no job boards or platforms that actually help you land roles. And I know that sounds, it's quite interesting how, you would think it would be in LinkedIn's interest to make everyone's CV fantastic or make their LinkedIn profile fantastic or make them interview really well. But actually, a lot of that learning isn't provided. And what we're really good at doing at Ivee is saying, these are the things you need to do and you will land a role. And we see it in the statistics where if you put your CV into our hybrid format, it will double your chances of getting an interview. That's great for the candidates, but that's great for us because it's value that we're giving our clients by hiring through our talent pool. But yeah, you best believe people aren't hopping on LinkedIn Learning to upskill and figure that out.
I think LinkedIn's kind of shifted a bit from just, being a place where you find a job to more also like talking about, your personal like stories and what you're doing, your job, your updates, etc. And so I want to now shift a bit and talk about, I guess, what everyone wants to talk about, which is your appearance on Dragon's Den, national television, millions of people. And that's only after a year into building Ivee. So that's like so impressive. I want to know everything because obviously you came in, asking for an offer. You left with like a deal from 2 dragons. So give me the whole story.
The tea, spill the tea. I mean, yeah, I guess it was, as I said, when we went on, we didn't have a platform. We were kind of at the idea stage. We were in the process of building. We just hadn't finished yet.
It didn't exist.
And again, it's that piece of chuck something out there. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win the raffle. Is that the phrase? I don't know. So we kind of apply, it was my boyfriend's favorite show and he would literally watch it before going to bed, reruns of it. And he was like, you should apply to this. And I was like, really? It's not really for us. We're a tech business. They usually have products. We're so early. We don't really have anything. And then I just went on the website the next day. I was like, I'm just gonna chuck in an application. And then in very us style, we don't just leave it at that. I then messaged all of the casting directors or producers on LinkedIn, anyone that I could find that had Dragon's Den in their name. And I was like, if I'm going to spend 20, 30 minutes on an application, I might as well spend another 20, 30 minutes and just do this to double your chances. And it was from that one of the casting directors got back to me. And they must get thousands and thousands of applications for this show. And so it's just that thing where you need to do something to stand out and you can't just expect them to properly read through your application and think, well, yeah, this is a great idea and you'd be great on the show. And we know that we'd be great on like telly just because it's an interesting idea. A lot of people don't have a huge amount of personality when they're in front of a camera, and I feel like that's something we can definitely bring.
Speak for yourself.
And yeah, so one of the producers got back to me and was like, sure, let's have a call. And I was like, right, Amelia, we've got a call, like we've got to wow them. Let's be really energetic, really vibrant and get to the, the next stage. So that was how, we got the initial contact, and then everything went quiet and we thought, oh, better luck next time, not going to happen. It wasn't, we're not really the business for it. And that's when, we were at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Partying it up.
We're partying, also not really sleeping because you're in a tent and it's loud and everything. And then got back the next couple of days, had no voice, so tired, got a call from an unknown number, and it's the BBC saying, can you be on a train to Manchester in 2 hours to film in the morning? And that was at kind of 2 p.m. on a Thursday, and we're filming Friday morning. So we just said, yeah, we'll be there. Got on the train, wrote the pitch on the train, and stayed up pretty much all night writing the pitch, watching episodes of Dragon's Den on YouTube in 2 times speed, just to understand the questions.
And then I made the mistake of watching like worst roasts on Dragon's Den compilations, freaking myself
Preparing
out.
yourself for the worst.
We were like calling my boyfriend, being like, so what's good on the show? Because he loves it so much. And then, eventually got the pitch done, got a doc of common questions and common answers type thing going. And walked into the studio the next morning. And then when we walked into the studio, we had to do the pitch to the entire production team first because they were all a bit worried.
Yeah.
Like, oh, guys. And everyone would be coming up to us going, how are you feeling, girls?
Oh, my God. That adds more stress.
Or they'd say, I can't believe you actually came.
Yeah. 2 people said they're like, can't believe you came. I couldn't have done it. We're like, well, why would you say that to me, Susan? We haven't been out yet. And then we had to deliver the pitch to like all 30 of the production team, just sort of like in the back, because we didn't go onto the set until literally you saw it on air.
Yeah.
We messed it up because we didn't know it. So,
learned it.
Yeah, we just hadn't learned it at that point, because you only have one take to do the pitch. So you do have to know it flawlessly.
Okay.
Because if you make a mistake in the pitch, they air that.
Okay.
And they would love to air that.
And they would love to air that, exactly.
Makes good TV.
And so, we the only time we had, the only practice we had doing the pitch in high pressure, we messed up, which meant we were so nervous going out because we thought we were going to mess it up. And thankfully we didn't.
No, not at all. I mean, honestly, your pitch was like perfect.
What they didn't show in the edit, which we're really annoyed about, is Peter Jones said it was the best pitch he's ever heard in the Den.
Oh, really? They removed that?
And they didn't put it in.
It's because I think if he'd made an offer, they would have kept it in.
No.
Yeah. Or maybe he said it once before in the past. They were like, someone's going to find it and be like, he already said that.
Very true. The Daily Mail will get that.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. And so tell us, how did it feel just being, I guess, on that stage? And you guys negotiated, you just didn't stop there. You were like, no, we're going to make it work our way.
Yeah, we were surprised, actually. The reaction to the negotiation has been big. Yeah, everyone's been talking about the negotiation. And we were so nervous walking out, but once we got through the pitch, the nerves, for me at least, completely wore off, because we were so, and again, it was last minute, but we were prepared. We'd spent the last 4 months in a tech accelerator, honing in our storytelling, answering questions, making sure that if we were ever in front of an investor, we would know what to say, which meant that when the time came to be in there for 3 hours answering their questions, we had everything ready to go.
Yeah.
And so I was super confident that once we got through the pitch, we'd be able to impress them with our answers.
And I think on the what they also didn't show on the telly is we went back and forth to the wall 3 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
They only show one.
They only show one because they have to cut it down, because as Amelia said, we were in there for almost 3 hours. And went back and forth. So there was actually even more of a negotiation. And I think the producer said no one's ever gone to the wall 3 times in a negotiation. But we wanted a good deal. We definitely wanted Stephen and Deborah on board. So we needed to make it work for both of them, which is why I think the clip they used, it was us in the corner, like holding glasses of water. And we were like, everyone's going to think, if, watching it, if we were only in there for 20 minutes and we're there like glugging water, that we're so nervous. But it had been a long time. We've been in there a while.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they don't show everything like that.
Yeah.
And so how was the response after that? Like, how did it feel? Because obviously, can you tell us what's the deal that you ended up with in the end?
Yeah, so we got, we have Stephen and Deborah as investors. And I know we were saying before how a lot of deals don't go through after the Den, but we're lucky to say that it did. And they're on the cap table, which is great, because I do think having like the value and the partnership with the Dragons post episode is just as important as the episode going out. And we're massive on content marketing, and so we've got so much fun stuff planned with both of them to come out. And if the deal hadn't gone through, then obviously they wouldn't be incentivized to film fun content with us. So it means that we can, leverage the episode and make it not just be kind of a one moment thing, and we can have fresh and new content coming out, because people's attention spans are short. And, the footage from that episode is only going to last a couple of weeks in the limelight, and then you've got to move on to something else.
We'll be rinsing it for
every step, every time. Did they actually send you the full footage, like the full 3 hours, or no? Oh, okay.
No.
So you can't
we just see it with the public on the night.
Okay, wow.
So
I haven't been able to watch it back though.
Really?
It's been like so cringe.
No, but you should. It's a proud moment, and also your red blouse is so nice.
That was the other thing. We didn't really have time to think about our outfits because we hopped straight on a train.
Yeah, I bet. You look good for national television. It's okay. You pulled it off. And so on Ivee, what was the response to that?
So our existing community were just beside themselves. They were so excited. And then we've obviously had thousands and thousands and thousands of new community members and candidates join the platform. So we now have this new wave of talent on the platform that didn't know we existed before. And so for us, it's making sure that we've got the right comms in place to welcome those candidates, make sure that they are joining our next upcoming Return to Work bootcamp, for example, or are joining our next Intro to AI webinar, and just know how to navigate the platform. And then we've obviously had a huge amount of B2B interest as well from companies that want to tap into this talent pool as well. So it's wading through and making sure everyone gets a call back and keeping up with everyone.
I feel like you need a new hire.
Yeah, well, we have just actually made a new sales hire to do that, exactly that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if it explodes overnight like that, you need it, definitely. And so before we kind of wrap it up, because I know you're short on time now, obviously, you're building the platform, but I've noticed, and that's how I was so attracted to reaching out. You both are also building your personal brands. You both have your separate voices on, LinkedIn, and, when you do talks, or you've also been named under the top 50 women in the tech in UK. I want to know if that was coincidental, or is it growing with Ivee, and how you're using that for your mission?
I kind of think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, the personal brand piece, because I think that female founders are expected to build in public more, and you do see some of the, I guess, famous entrepreneurs in this space, like the Grace Beverleys. They are building in public, but they also do fit a certain look and style, and I think that that's something that we've thought about a lot, which is, are we just, are we doing this because it's what we see and therefore what we think we need to do, and what we need to do to actually show progress to people like investors who might otherwise not take it as seriously. So it's these are the thoughts that we're having about it. But I do think that fundamentally we're driven by the data, and the data has shown that building our personal brands does help build the business as well, whether that's B2B inbounds from LinkedIn, which is where a lot of the buyer does live and does exist, or whether that's candidates who are frustrated and getting really upset on LinkedIn, seeing things that just aren't for them, and they see one of our posts and it's a bit of a breath of fresh air, or whether that's press picking up on our LinkedIn profiles and then putting a story in the Times about us off the back of that, which again reaches an entirely new audience. And so for us, the data shows that it has been good, and that is the reason why we're doing it. But yeah, there's definitely something in, it's grappling with that and then being am I just fitting into the stereotype of young female founder building out loud again? And why should I have to do that to be taken seriously?
I actually disagree.
Okay.
Agree to disagree, but
I love the wiser older sister.
I love making content. It brings me joy. I really enjoy it. Whereas I know for Lydia, I've had to sometimes force her to write LinkedIn posts.
And where's your LinkedIn post? She's supposed to put it out this morning.
Yeah, I just love content, and I mandate the team as well for everyone to do a weekly LinkedIn post. And there's some amazing brands out there that do a similar thing, and I know run internal competitions around, and you can actually win a prize if you do the best post with the best reach. And I do think there's just a massive rise in employee generated content as being the best free marketing you can get. So I'm so for it. I also think it's just, and I say this to the team, it's so fantastic for your career. For our social media interns, for example, whether they spend their career at Ivee or whether they leave after their internship, building a personal brand is only going to do good things for their career, because we're living and we're entering a world where it's so hard to get a job. There's so many candidates out there. Outside of doing it for vanity or doing it for Ivee, if I ever need a job in the future, I know that I have built in the last 10 months an unbelievable network on LinkedIn that I could find work, great work, in a week.
Yeah.
And it kind of can be as fundamental as that. And you don't need to be a founder to build a personal brand. You should build one anyway. And in the world of AI, anyone can be a thought leader. A great example is Lara on our team, who is 22. She's just come out of Durham.
Wow.
And she, with a bit of a push from me, has started posting content around GEO, so ranking in LLMs and your brand being discoverable there. And she is now a thought leader in the space.
Wow.
And she's being approached. She was just in Sifted giving her opinion on it.
Wow.
And all it takes is the confidence to say, actually, I think I want to build a bit of a personal brand here. I'm just going to start posting content. And I think having the confidence to do that is probably a big hurdle that a lot of people face.
Yeah.
But a little phrase I've seen going about on the social media is life begins at the edge of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Of like, if something is embarrassing and you feel embarrassed by it, you know, it's probably pushing you in a good
The
direction.
quote is actually, embarrassment is the cost of entry.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Mix up my quotes.
Same message. It's
Same
okay.
message. Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. I feel like there's a cringe kind of like phase you have to take, and then it's just like it'll all make sense. It'll be better. I mean, I feel like also for me, a lot of it is the confidence that you need, and it's very hard sometimes. You know, it's just starting or getting to it is very hard. But I definitely agree that it's having your own personal brand is so important, because that's the way you want the world to see you, and that's how you gain their trust and everything. So for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, and you know, it also comes back to you do have to put out good content. You know, I'm not going to lie and say everyone can make a personal brand, because if you're posting bad content, your personal brand will flop, unfortunately.
But it doesn't have to be like super high quality video content. Like you could do other things, but finding your niche, that's something that like Amelia's much more kind of vloggy, day in the life, more personal stories, whereas I found more of a niche with like building technical products and the new releases that we're doing and why that's interesting. And I think fundamentally it all comes down to being a good storyteller and just being able to tell that story in an authentic way in a world of, if I see one more LinkedIn post that has like the star emojis, all caps title, like things I've learned this year at work, I'm like, oh my God, that's obviously written by AI. Why is anyone going to read that?
Yeah.
And understanding the algorithm, like, don't just post and forget about it. Like, I go through my LinkedIn analytics every single week to look at what are my best performing posts, and then I'll double down on that content, and I'll study the algorithm and know that when I post, I need to have a question, because otherwise people won't comment. Every comment, I need to reply to those comments, ideally with a question, to create subthreads, because I know the algorithm
It's the engagement.
favors subthreads because it shows engagement. It's just like all these little things where it's not just willy-nilly posting.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Definitely.
But people are probably listening to this like, I literally don't have time to do that. It's the last thing on my mind, which is also fair.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think if it's your like, you have your own business, it's not, you know, a side hustle, it's a bit easier because that's your only focus. But otherwise, yeah, I agree. Maybe time is a bit of a constraint.
But then back to my point earlier, which is like, you get what you put out. Like Amelia's got now, what, 20 something K followers on LinkedIn. That was because of the like going through the data analytics. It wasn't like, oh, I woke up and I have 20K, yay.
Of
it was
course.
like, this is the data, this is what I've done. I've put in the work to be an overnight success.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's a lot of like consistency needed that people don't really see, just like with anything. Well, it was a pleasure to have you both on. Fortunately, have to wrap it up, but we'll be watching your space. I'm so excited to see what's next for you guys. Honestly, like I think what you're building is amazing. I mean, I'm not a user, but maybe one day I'll be, and I'm sure a lot of people, it's going to resonate with them, and they'll like realize something that they didn't know was, you know, available to them now. So thank you for building this also.
Thanks for having us.
so much
It's
for
been
having
so
us.
great.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Take care.
You've been listening to The Seat of the Muse, and I'm so grateful you chose to spend this time with me. If something stirred you today, a thought, a feeling, a question, I'd love for you to subscribe and follow on your favorite platform, leave a review, and even share this episode with a friend. Your support truly fuels this space and helps invite more voices to sit down with me. Until next time, stay curious.